For nearly a decade, Spigot has relied on a tool designed to avoid a lawsuit, but that tool may be breaking the law anyway. Today we're breaking down SpigotMC's BuildTools, a program created in response to a DMCA takedown back in 2014. Despite being presented as a legally safe workaround, we will discuss why it may still violate the GPL. I asked the Free Software Foundation, the team behind the GPL, what Spigot may be doing wrong, and later on I will reveal the response I received from a legal professional. If you're not familiar with the original DMCA takedown of Spigot, the GPL, or how this entire situation started, I strongly recommend watching my previous video because everything we discuss today builds directly on that. So let's start with the basic question. Why does BuildTools even exist? In 2014, an original Bucket developer, Wolverness, issued a DMCA takedown against Spigot. The claim was that Spigot was violating the GPL, a software license that has very strict rules about redistribution. In my previous video, I shared my findings from the conversations that I had with Wolverness. I stated that Wolverness still believes that BuildTools, SpigotMC's solution, is a violation of the GPL, but I never explained why. In this video, I seek to develop an argument for why BuildTools may still be considered a violation. After the DMCA takedown notice, Spigot had a serious problem that they had to contend with. The issue is that Spigot contains two things that don't mix well legally: the proprietary Minecraft server code and the GPL licensed Bucket code, which requires that the entire combined program be distributable under the GPL. Now, those licenses are incompatible. Due to the GPL, you're required to accompany the program executable with its source code whenever you intend to distribute the program. However, you're not really allowed to redistribute Mojang's proprietary code, which was included in Spigot, so Spigot couldn't legally distribute the server jar at all. Spigot's attempt at a solution was through BuildTools. BuildTools is a program that downloads the official Minecraft server from Mojang, applies GPL license patches from the Spigot project, recompiles everything on your machine, thereby producing a Spigot server jar. This means that Spigot doesn't directly distribute the final jar. I asked MD5, the leader of the Spigot project, why he chose this approach, and he claimed that his lawyer stated that this was considered the safest option under copyright law. MD5 also stated that as a reason for why he's not transitioned into PaperMC's paperclip solution. But more about paperclip will be discussed in a future video. The logic is basically this: if you download proprietary code, and you apply GPL patches, and you compile it locally, then this may be considered a private combination and not redistribution. In other words, it may be considered as if you're building Spigot yourself. This is probably what MD5 and his lawyers thought. And on the surface, this argument sounds reasonable, but here's where things get complicated, and where the legal professional working at the Free Software Foundation raised some concerns. BuildTools may not just be a workaround, it may be a circumvention of the GPL. To those that are knowledgeable of the GPL, a solution like BuildTools isn't really nothing new. Richard Stallman, the man behind the GPL and the free software movement, dealt with a similar case back in 1992 during a dispute with the Clisp developer Bruno Hebel over the use of the GPL licensed library Readline. Hebel argued that by splitting his software into parts and letting users do the final combination themselves, he could avoid placing his whole program under the GPL. Stallman rejected this argument and explained that he had consulted a lawyer who told him that judges would consider such schemes subterfuges. Stallman also wrote that the lawyer said judges would ask whether it is really one program, rather than how it is labeled, and would be very harsh toward attempts to disguise a combined work. Stallman stated, the FSF position would be that this is still one program, which has only been disguised as two. That reasoning eventually persuaded Hebel to release Clisp under the GPL, reinforcing the idea that intentionally designing around the GPL does not actually escape its requirements. In 2025, I contacted the Free Software Foundation. But before I share the response I received, it's really important that I clarify that their response was not legal advice. Similarly, this video is not legal advice, and I only have permission to share their response under one condition: that I share it complete and verbatim. They actually share some very important insights into what Richard Stallman would likely think of BuildTools, what Richard Stallman's legal advisor at the time would likely think of BuildTools, and potentially what a judge in a court of law would think of BuildTools. But of course, none of this is conclusive. The only way to find out whether a program is legal or not is by going through the legal system. And as of now, SpigotMC has not received a lawsuit.